Good afternoon, everyone, and I'm delighted to welcome you here at ASU to Remote, the Connected Faculty Summit. I'm David Levin, the executive producer of the summit, and also the University Entrepreneur in Residence here at ASU. This is the beginning of an exciting festival of the best of online and hybrid teaching, an event that has been designed to give practical help to all faculty members building their courses for the coming academic year. We have over 25,000 faculty members from more than 2,000 colleges and universities in the USA and from 60 countries, from the American University of Afghanistan to Midland State University in Zimbabwe, not far from where I was born. So this is a really special group, and we have arranged an exceptional program for you. 100 speakers, all of whom are practitioners with very successful online programs, are leading 84 content sessions over the next 2 days. For those joining us live, please do take full advantage of the Q&A and networking forums that we have in place. For those joining us asynchronously, you have the opportunity to mine this huge agenda and watch all of the sessions of interest to you. It is fitting that ASU is our host, as it's been recognized as the most innovative university in the USA, a powerhouse of research and teaching, with a charter to be measured not by whom it excludes, but by whom it includes and how they succeed. And I'm honored we're joined by ASU President Michael Crow for this inaugural session. I'm very grateful that President Crow, the ASU Foundation, and the ASU leadership team have supported the development of this whole virtual summit. Welcome, Michael. We're really looking forward to hearing what you have to say about this broad subject of the changing role of faculty and why you wanted to come to support the event and welcome us all here today.
Well, thank you, David. I mean, it really is the case that we're sitting at a unique, what I call a carpe diem moment, a seize the day moment, where we have here in the United States, anyway, massive social transformation accelerating and moving forward in what will be net positive outcomes. We've got COVID, global pandemic that's driving us to deeply understand the limits and the potential of our institutions. And we've got 5,000 faculty members here at ASU who have, in really miraculous ways, transformed themselves into a powerful force of nature, able to take on things and do things and make things happen in ways that I think have been really profound. So I'm happy to be here.
Well, thank you very much. And it's good to start there because, the change that you have brought about at ASU over the last 18 years is remarkable. And when one looks at the shape of the wider university system, which, has been hit by this pandemic, the obvious question that sort of stands out is this a one-off? Is this a sort of black swan that's come in and hit the system? Or is this something different? Is this a catalyst which has just taken a bunch of things that were there anyway and brought them to light?
No, this is not a black swan. This is not a one-off moment. This is the intersection of high-speed social change, high-speed globalization, high-speed ecological change on our planet, all accelerating because of size and complexity and density and interconnectedness. This is a moment where we're realizing that the 16th, 17th, 18th century model of universities as only being close-knit faculty clusters with students physically clustered around them, as profound and as significant as that model has been, it's not adequate for the future sociologically. It's not adequate for the future technologically. It's not adequate for the future relative to adaptability. And so this is not a black swan by any means.
And if you look at it when you see it, I've been reading The Fifth Wave and talking about and understanding your conversation about the role of universities connected to their societies. But is that the biggest gulf, or are there other things as well that we need to be thinking about when we consider the design of the system?
No, I think it's bigger than the chasm of societies. Between society and the universities, what we've allowed to happen is we've become overly simplistic in our model of universities. We think that all universities have to strive to be a certain kind of thing, the most selective, the most unique, the most this or that, and there's certainly room for, in the world of higher education globally, hundreds, if not thousands, of different types of institutions, not just different institutions, different types of institutions, each taking on slightly different angles of attack, each taking on slightly different approaches, each adaptable to the cultural characteristics where they're located. And so it's far more than just the chasm. It actually has to do with the simplicity of the design and the inadequate nature of the design itself for the complexity of the present planet that we're living on.
And what would be the sort of the most pressing imperatives for universities to think about in terms of changing themselves, for the system to change?
You know, and I'm going to say some things that it doesn't mean that everyone has to change. It means that those that are concerned about the lack of social equity in our outcomes, those concerned about the slowness of our speed and adaptability, those concerned about how we got into the box relative to global climate change and how the universities just, you know, we're not more reactive to that. Those that are concerned about our inability to react to things like global pandemics, those institutions have to sit back and say, how do I empower my faculty more? How do I change the culture of the institution to move faculty away from the bureaucratic constraints and designs of the last several hundred years, at least in the Western universities, and then empower the faculty to be, you know, powerful designers of intellectual creativity, new forms of intellectual engagement, and new forms of intellectual projection, using technology as a way to project to a broader cross-section of society. And that culture change sits at the heart of all this.
Right. No, it's fantastic. We're going to come on to faculty, but can I go back to the actual universities themselves, the institution? You know, what are the consequences for the system if it doesn't adapt, or for the systems if it doesn't adapt?
Well, in the US, the consequences are that we're going to have social inequities actually being driven by the universities themselves. They're actually empowering the social inequities by becoming elitist and separatist institutions. We're going to have accelerated negative ecological outcomes because we have hard and fast, rigid disciplines who are unable to move quickly enough to get in front of the issues associated with global climate change and everything that comes with it. So just using those two examples, the outcomes are that our institutions are too slow and too non-adaptive. They're not as reflexive as they need to be because they're wedded to the notion that they are the grounding agent only, that they are set to ground society as opposed to empower society. And those are two very different, related, but very different ideas.
Right. And empowerment is very much at the heart of the sort of the thinking that you've brought into ASU, empowerment to innovate, empowerment in lots and lots of dimensions. If we think about it in the context of faculty, you've just used that word, empower faculty, and here we have tens of thousands of faculty who have joined us at this event. What does empowerment mean? What should it mean for them? What could it mean for them?
Well, for me, it means taking over intellectual design. I don't know why we have so many replications occurring throughout the world in universities, why everybody has the same political science department and the same history department and the same this and the same this and the same this, and why we don't have broader sets of types of intellectual enterprises, transdisciplinary, post-disciplinary, interdisciplinary, as well as disciplines themselves. Faculty have been largely, particularly in the United States, but I've been around the world to many universities also, unbelievably bureaucratized in the most simple bureaucratic models imaginable. And so that has limited then intellectual creativity, not of the individual, but of the groups of individuals, of the ways in which disciplines have evolved and the ways in which institutions have become more or less responsive. And so the empowerment of faculty sits with freeing intellectual design and empowering the faculty with that. I think also empowerment of the faculty by finding a way to take the great minds of the 21st century academics and empowering them with technology. So they're not only going to work with the students that are able to assemble around them, but they're going to be able to make their ideas and their concepts and their theories and their thoughts and their discourse available to broader cross sections of our society. And that's another form of empowerment that I think has not been maximized in the university designs that are out there.
And if you contrast the role of faculty of yesteryear with what you think it will be of tomorrow, what would be the sort of the critical elements that are the differences one by one that they really need to think about?
Well, again, this is a generalization. There would be institutions with older models, and that would be fine. But the newer models would be models wherein faculty were able to move more freely through the university. The faculty member, we use the term at ASU, super faculty. A super faculty member is a person who is empowered by their own education, has access to anything and everything that they possibly would need to continue their lifelong education as a faculty member, moving into new fields, moving into new disciplines themselves. They would have students clustered around them who are also creators. They're not supplicants. You know, they're people who are creating with them, who are enabling with them, who are making things happen with them. They would then have research and creativity activities going on throughout the academy, not just some selected institutions. We've decided that only this handful of institutions can contribute to the stock of knowledge, when it should be all institutions that call themselves colleges or universities should be contributing. And then you underpin all of this with a technological platform that allows all of the hard, fast boundaries of the university to be eliminated. The university can project, the university can enable, the university can work with groups of people, single people, people throughout their lifetime. And not every university would want to do this, but then the super faculty member then has creativity, research, contributions to the stock of knowledge, face-to-face students, and learners that are connected to them through unbelievable technological linkages. That's a whole new view of a faculty member.
In the way that ASU's developed under your leadership, research has been absolutely foundational, bringing and increasing and really focusing on creating a world-class research establishment. And that wasn't obviously the case in the ASU before you were there.
Right.
What is the faculty of sort of this duality, researcher and teacher, and not everywhere, but in many places. How do you think institutions need to look at that? You've just mentioned that they have there's an opportunity there, but what is the relationship between research and teaching in this emerging world?
Well, to me, it's integral to universities and colleges and faculties being most capable. So if you imagine that everything that we know is compressed into a thing that I call the stock of knowledge, the core of knowledge, every theory, every model, every assumption, every historical perspective, every artistic vision that we have is stored in this sort of core of knowledge. Faculty have to be people who are capable of contributing to that, drawing from it, analyzing it, understanding where it is, understanding how it's expanding. Otherwise, they are, over time, less and less valuable as a professor. And so this core of knowledge and the connection to it is essential. This is one of the things I think that was one of the problems with some of the for-profit colleges and universities, was that they weren't connected, drawing from and contributing to the core of knowledge. And so to me, at colleges and universities, faculty must at least be engaged in understanding the core of knowledge, drawing from it, contributing to it, scholarly engaged, and then in many institutions, researching and expanding that core of knowledge in a significant way. That's something we've been able to do here at ASU, greatly expanding our research activity, thousands and tens of thousands of people involved in research, increasing our research activity by hundreds of millions of dollars a year by empowering our faculty to perform both of these things at the same time at scale.
And you mentioned there this sort of scale shift, but your vision has always encompassed also the student and how they relate to faculty. And maybe you could elaborate a little bit on how the student fits into this cocktail. As you know, are they a passive recipient of learning, or are they a contributor in other ways?
Well, we definitely don't see them as passive. I mean, anybody born after 1996, we call homo sapien.net. They're different than people born before 96. 96, think of that as the huge birth of the internet and all knowledge being basically available on demand, at least information. And so the student is anything but passive. And so we've worked to evolve the university where the student is seen as both a learner and as an asset, a creator, and as a consumer and more we're driving the institution in the direction where, in fact, we even have a model where ultimately all of our students that are on campus will be a part of the creative and productive energy of the university. That will be their learning environment, and then that will be projected out to other lifelong learners throughout the country and across the planet. And so it's definitely not the case that they're passive supplicants. They are active, engaged, creative drivers, and we need to change our curricula to be able to reflect that.
Right. And let's come back then to the sort of the nature of faculty and this word empowerment, because one of the bits of feedback that we've had from many of the faculty members in the process of registering them for this event has been a huge gratitude for the fact that ASU was hosting this event, would be providing them with some sort of professional development and access, but was a sense of disempowerment, of being alienated from this process of change and being themselves objects which make a change but not drivers. As you think about people in that position, what does empowerment mean, and what could it mean for them?
Well, I mean, like myself, being a faculty member, I grew up as an academic. I built my life around learning and ideas and creating new ideas and adding to those ideas and teaching those ideas and just the unbelievable energy that can be derived from those experiences. I mean, it really is this notion of how we help faculty members to manage the complexity of the world around them by building mediating systems and mediating devices. And it doesn't mean that you're not sitting in your small meeting room with a group of English composition and English literature students and having a great time with 10 students, in a fantastically deep experience. But it also means that same faculty member, in addition to that, might then take all of their ideas, and rather than waiting to see if it gets published in some abstract academic journal as their means of academic expression, they may have their entire intellectual identity engaged with thousands of learners around the world, or tens of thousands of learners around the world. And what I think that faculty members need to look for are ways in which their minds, their unbelievably unique expressions can be enhanced and empowered to enhance all teaching, learning, and discovery outcomes that they possibly can become engaged with, as opposed to just accepting this hard, rigid model. Teach your class, try to publish your paper, make sure you get a book so that you can be promoted in the humanities, and that's it. That's your entire expression. That you want to find a way where your life has maximum impact, maximum effect, maximum change, and if that's what you want. And there are ways to do that now, and there didn't used to be.
So using all of this technology as a vehicle to get out, to engage, to connect with all the other facets of learning and wider economic development.
Well, I mean, so most faculty are not motivated by money. They're not motivated by fame. Most are motivated because they want recognition for contribution to the understanding of our species, or the understanding of science, or the expression of literature or art or music or some unbelievably important human form of expression. They want to make that contribution, and that contribution to be recognized. We now live in a moment in time where the old archaic models are not the only way to have that accomplished. And so that then, if we really figure out how to do this, could take a planet where we have very few people going to college on the planet. We have very few people graduating from college on the planet. We have very few people understanding all the things that we might need to understand to be a better and more adaptive, more sustainable place. Let's just pick that from a global climate change perspective. We're nowhere near where we need to be. We haven't figured out how to educate at scale. We haven't figured out how to do any of these things. Now we have the means to do that. We have the mechanisms to do that. We can see what the impact of not doing it is. You can see where we are with COVID-19, and at least in some places, the weakness of our responses and our inability to make decisions, our inability to have a scientifically literate population. You can see where we are relative to global climate change around the world. We're moving at, a 20th of the speed that we need to be moving. Why is that? Why is it that we're not producing a high-speed, impactful faculty who are capable of engaging on these like unbelievably important things? And so we now can. 10 years ago we couldn't. Now we can.
If we look back, in 1985, I think you started as a young associate professor, I think, at the University of Kentucky, your first teaching job post PhD.
Yeah.
If you were talking to your younger self, what would your advice to you be?
My advice to myself would be take more risks, and I take lots of risks. Realize you live only once. You're going to die no matter what. You don't know what day it's going to be, and you're not going to be ready. So just take more risks. That's one thing I would say. The second thing that I would say is question authority. Attack. And what I mean by that is that if we're looking at the reasons that we have inadequate implementation of the ideals in the American democracy of justice and equality beyond all else, is that we haven't attacked enough. We haven't driven enough. We haven't found ways to teach more boldly and to create more boldly and to say things more boldly. And so my old self from way back then, my 29-year-old self, I would say those are the things that I would say. And then I would say probably find ways to work with others in ways in which you can build new kinds of understanding.
Right. Fantastic. Michael, let me look later in the career, because we've also got some thousands of academics who are in senior positions through their entire institutions, and they too are feeling in a state of discomfort and shock about what to do, the immediacy of COVID, the wider climate change dimension, the whole issue of social justice. What would your advice be to the many chairs of departments, the provosts, the vice provosts, the deans who are here and have come to this event today?
Well, I was deputy provost at Columbia University almost 30 years ago, and I've been in this job for 18 years. What I would say to everyone is we have nothing to whine about. We live in one of the most privileged subsections of society that's ever been created. We've been given unbelievable license by society, unbelievable resources by society, wherever we are. Whether we're in North America, Africa, Middle East, unbelievable resources. And what we need to do is we need to seriously think through, in my view, how to stop complaining, which we do very well, how to start adapting and adjusting and understanding our role in society. And we need to start taking accountability. We need to start being responsible for what's going on around us. If the judicial system, if the police are inadequate in their design in the United States, in their treatment of blacks, that is a design function, a training function, an education function, a political oversight function, a moral duty, a legal function, and universities contribute to all of those, obviously inadequately. And then taking that on and admitting it and saying that we are inadequate in our work, I just think that's a huge motivation for people.
I think that is a wonderful note on which to end this. President Crow, I just have to say, at a personal level, I salute you. You've made an amazing difference, and I think these last 20 minutes or 25 minutes that you've shared with us have sort of illustrated some of the points why. Thank you very much for hosting the remote summit. Thank you very much for your sponsorship and support, and I look forward to seeing you soon, I hope.
Thank you, Dave. Welcome, everybody.